Welcome to the Leading Hope Podcast with Kevin Jack. Your influence will lead people somewhere, lead them towards hope. Everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.
Welcome to Leading Hope with Kevin Jack. I'm your host, VJ Williams, here with my friend and pastor, Kevin Jack. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day to become a better leader. We will release a new episode every Wednesday, so we'd love for you to subscribe, share on social media, bring others along with us on this journey of becoming a better leader. Visit leadinghope.online to get updates and find out more about the Leading Hope community. Today, we are in the second part of our Rhythm series, episode 10, Think Like an Architect. I can't wait for this one. Let's go, Kevin. What do you got?
So we left our first installment, episode 9 of this series on rhythms, with this key idea, that most people's rhythms are observed and absorbed and not designed. That for the vast majority of us, the way in which we live our lives, the things that set the trajectory of our life have been inherited from our family or unintentionally picked up from our friends and not specifically put in as practices in our life to shape who we were meant to become and who we always desired to become. And today, I want to explain the reason why that is. And the way I see it is that there are 3 different levels of ability and 3 different levels, in essence, of thinking. So at the first level, as it comes to this idea of rhythm specifically, we have those who have the ability to run the system. They are able to take what has been handed to them and do it. Every single person on earth has the ability right now at this moment to run the system. You have been given a set of tasks, a set of priorities, a set of responsibilities, and you can handle it. For my children, I can tell my 9-year-old, unload the dishwasher. I have to tell my 2-year-old, or he's 3 now, whenever he has a job, like I can't tell him, pick up the family room. I have to tell him, pick up that blanket, pick up that pillow, pick up Thor, pick up Captain America, pick up the spirit horse, and do it individually. He's not capable of doing all of them at once. That's a little too much for him at this point in time. But that's basically what it is. It's just saying like, hey, you've been given a list. You've been given responsibilities. Go and do it. Now, I do want to add on this note. This is kind of like the bottom level. This is the foundation, just being able to run the system. Not everyone does that. And so I don't want you to just naturally assume, oh, because this is level 1. Like, you may be at level 0.
Yeah.
Like, and all it takes is effort and will. All it takes is some energy behind it and determination at times. But that doesn't mean you're doing it. And to say that you have the ability to run the system, but you don't do it, is the farthest thing from a compliment that I could possibly give you.
Yeah.
And so, like, for anyone to say, like, hey, you can do this, but you're not, that's not a good thing within there. But that is that first level. It is just simply running the system, taking what has been handed to us, and doing the things that we were supposed to do. That's level 1. Level 2 is the person who is able to manage the system. This is the person who oversees the system that has been handed to them and helps others live into it. And so think of this as the taking the difference from child to parent. The child has to run the system. They have tasks, they have chores, they have responsibilities. If you're a good parent, which I am not always, you are enabling your children to run the system. You are empowering and teaching your children to run the system. You are not always cleaning their room for them. You are teaching them how to clean their room and making sure they do it. But that is that second level of managing, of ensuring that other people are operating in the abilities, in the tasks that they need to accomplish where they need to get. Now, this is where I think it gets really interesting and fascinating, is there's a third level. And that third level is the person who designs the system. And in order to design the system, you have to be able to connect 2 massive ideas. Is you have to be able to connect long-range vision with daily tasks, responsibilities, habits, and behaviors. That you have to be able to see, this is how what we do on a daily basis will lead us in the long haul to who we were meant to become. And sometimes we talk about it from this level. Is somebody will say, "Oh, I'm big picture. I'm not a detail person." And I think that is it's just a cop out. Like it's ridiculous. And so if we could break that down, if we would take like the work that has been done on like strengths-based leadership, and we understand it like this, and Marcus Buckingham has done amazing work on this, that a strength is something that makes you feel strong. A strength is something that energizes you. So let me say it like this. I am not a detail person. I am not a detail person. But what I mean by that is when I get engaged in the details, I lose energy. It's not that I do not possess the ability to navigate and manage the details. It's not that I don't possess the ability to see the details and what needs to be done. It's just not what I get enthusiastic about. And to say that, oh, I'm a detail person, I'm not a big picture person, that shouldn't mean that you don't possess the ability to see the big picture. It just means that's not where you're most excited. That's not what you get enthusiastic and feel energized about within all of this. And so what needs to happen is, in order to be a designer, in order to be someone who designs the system, you must be able to simultaneously hold two thoughts in your head. Where do I want my life to go? And how does what I do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis lead myself into that? Where do I want my family to go, my company to go, my job to go, my community to go? And how does what I do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis fit into that? And this is higher level thinking. Like every single person, if you put forth effort, you can run the system. It is harder. It is a different competency to actually manage the system, to understand priorities, responsibilities, to understand and be able to communicate the purpose, the why behind why we do the things what we do, and help others live into that. But then it is a whole extra skill set on top of that to be able to say, no, I'm going to design it. I'm going to clearly go, This is what I want my life to be, and this is how I live as a result of that. And I think if most of us were really honest, what we would realize at the end of the day is when it comes to our lives, we don't think like an architect. We're not actually designing our lives. We're just living. We're just going through the motions. We're just doing the things that were handed to us. And we act like this. And this is the thing, Veach, that just kind of kills me, is we act like we have no control. And I go, well, if you don't have control over the decisions of your life, then who on earth does? Yeah. And just to make it to the answer is my wife, but we'll keep going within the main stuff on this. But honestly, like to go, like you're an adult. You have control over your life. Right. And that, oh my goodness, I don't say that from a standpoint of, now be selfish and do whatever you want to do, because goodness gracious, your life should be about something more than that. Right. But it's understanding you are not powerless in the decisions that you make. Yeah. And so as you think through what you do consistently, as you think through the rhythms of your life, don't think of it simply as an employee. Don't think of it simply as a manager. Like, you are the CEO of your life. Right. You are the one who is in charge of where it is headed. And so think like a designer, think like an architect, and go, if I am going, what do I want this life to be like? What do I want this life? What purpose do I want this life to fill into? And if that is the case, how can I make sure that my rhythms haven't simply been, to use language from the previous week, observed and absorbed? How can I make sure that they are intentional in filling into that future? So you're living your life, but you're designing it at the same time. And one of the hard things we run into here at the church is we'll joke about it like this. We'll say, man, if we could just take like 3 months off of Sunday services, we'd be so far ahead. Yeah. And I know every single pastor in the world has felt that at some point. I'm like, man, if we could just not have Sunday services for a period, and I am not saying that to belittle Sunday services. I love Sunday service. It's just acknowledging that for all of our lives, we have all the things that we have to do. And because we have all the things we have to do, we can't get ahead on the things that we know we need to do. And there's always this clash between the urgent and the important that is just part of navigating the tension of life that we live in. But it's acknowledging that I have two roles. And for most of us, what has happened is the tyranny of the urgent has completely trumped the important. And so we're no longer intentional about designing our lives, and we're just going through the motions day after day after day. And so if you are going to get where you want to go, you cannot just think like an employee of your life. You have to think like an architect. You have to think like a CEO and design your life as well.
That's exactly right. I love the fact that you mentioned that we do get to make choices. You know what I mean? God obviously is in control, but we have free will to make choice. Mm-hmm. And those are decisions that you make hourly. They're not just weekly or monthly. They're hourly, daily. And that's exactly right. So we'll talk about that in just a second, about not just living your life, designing your life. But I want to get into that piece that you talked about, the detailed individual versus the designer mindset. And so I had this conversation with some guys here at the church just recently, and I'm right down the middle.
Yeah.
Like I'm super right down the middle, which I think is where where should someone be? I was going to go with what I thought, but I would rather hear what you thought. Someone be? I want to hear, because the detailed person is going to actually make sure something happens.
Yeah.
But the designer is the one that says, this is where we're going. Mm-hmm. So where should you lay on that spectrum of those three levels?
So we say it like this. You need in a healthy organization, a healthy church on a healthy team, you need both. You need people who are enthusiastic about both. Not all of them at the same time. And if you have a team of all people who are big picture, you obviously know the result is that nothing's going to get done. But not just that, they're all going to compete over the same space. They're all going to compete on trying to have the best idea. If you have people who are detailed people, they're not going to go anywhere. They'll get stuff done, but it's not going to go anywhere intentional. And they'll also all compete over the same space on details. So there's that piece in there. I think the biggest thing that just, honestly, at times it irks me is the way in which, like, both works are important. And I don't get in my family, because, man, if we make a contribution to anyone's leadership, I hope we make a contribution in the church. I hope we make a contribution in your work. But I hope more than anything else, we make a contribution in your family, and what your family is, in your future family, whatever stage your life is in, that these principles are able to be applied. I don't get to go in my family, well, I'm not a detailed person.
Right.
And I don't get to go in my family, well, I'm not a big picture person. Yeah. And so we're just going to do whatever those around us are doing.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to have the skill sets of both. One of them is going to be far more energizing to you. But if you're not able to develop the skill set of both, you're either not going to go anywhere on purpose, or you're not going to go anywhere at all.
Yeah, that's the hope. That was the answer I was hoping you were going with. Good work. But, living in the church world for the last 3 years, that's a term that we always have is Sunday's always coming.
Always coming.
And so there is the details there that we have to worry about on Sunday. But if we're always continually worried about Sunday and the fact that that's all that's happening and that we can't help figure out where the vision's going, then we'll be stuck in that. And so as we continue to work through some of those things, I love that you have these three different systems: run the system, manage the system, design the system. And you talked about the frontline employee, the manager, the CEO, and actually we're responsible for all three.
Yep.
We don't get to choose, hey, I'm not going to do that. You just said that with your family. Out of the things that you've seen from your leadership position right now, out of those systems, what is at your level, and anyone who's listening who's a CEO of a company or a business unit, a group, what is the number one thing that you have to look out for all the time to make sure that the thing's successful?
Mm-hmm. I think you always have to look out. So at church, I function, if we were to use corporate terms for my role, I function in the role of what a CEO would be within the church. I think you always have to be cautious that you'll naturally assume whatever your work job is in every area of your life. So to say it like this, if you are a frontline employee at work, you are still a CEO at home and a frontline employee. And I think we have a tendency, because those tasks are so different in how we think, that we just abandon those other roles and we assume I only have this one role in all of life. So when I get home, yes, I am CEO in that function, and I'm not saying that male headship, we're not getting into any of that.
Right.
I'm just saying I need to think about the trajectory of where my family is headed, but I also need to do the laundry.
Yes.
And so it is essential that I can't just go, well, no, Bethany, I'm big picture on this. Like I'm focused on long term within there. No, the grass still needs cut.
Right.
And so I do that as well. And just to ensure that whatever your work position is, you cannot abandon those other roles in the other areas of your life.
That's good. That's so helpful because I know so many times in my life I didn't want to participate in the things that I didn't think was for me. But it actually was. I mean, it was benefit for everyone involved.
And I think this is the biggest thing. And I know this is a big passion of yours, of just because you do a lot of counseling with people. Like you really do. You do a lot of help with people in their marriages and their lives. And one of the things that I watch you do over and over again is you basically, like, you do it in a way that I don't see many people do it. You'll look at guys and husbands who are just not stepping up, and in all the empathy and compassion in the world say, get it together. Like no one else is responsible for your marriage other than you.
Yeah. And it's because I was them. I mean, that's exactly why I come from what place of authority you want to call it from, but I was them. And I know why I was like that, and I see that, and so and I tell every one of them that I love them. I think caring for people is the start of any relationship. Like you have to care for them to actually understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree 100%. One of the things I want to talk about real quick is you said to be a designer, you have to think at a higher level. That's a statement that is. It's kind of an obvious statement, but then when in practicality, it's like, how do I think at a higher level? What is the things? I mean, you read like crazy. You're very intellectual. You're very enthusiastic about the ability to learn. Like that's not, hey, whatever it is, I want to learn more, and I'm going to start today, and I'm going to finish tonight. Learning something new every day. How does someone learn or think at a higher level?
I think you surround yourself, and when I say surround yourself, I think most people think like, oh, that means I go to lunch, that's all my friends and stuff like that. I found the best way to surround myself is through books and embed myself in that levels of thinking of people who are just naturally thinking at it. We'll say it like this within our organizations. We'll say they play at a higher level. And sometimes I'll encounter leaders that I'll go, oh my goodness, I feel single A, and they are major leagues around them because they're doing it at a higher level. And by embedding yourself in those different lines of thought, you naturally force yourself to change how you think. It is so easy, not just for our living, but for our thinking to get into a rut. And so as we're doing this whole thing on rhythm, like sometimes I'll have people ask me like, how do you read so much? You have 4 kids, like you have a church. How do you read so much? And I just go, hey, here's the deal. You can do anything you want at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
There ain't a person in my family who is telling me what to do at 5 a.m.
This is true.
And it's just like, you can be incredibly selfish with your time. You just have to pick when you're going to be selfish with your time. I can't be selfish with my time at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
I got to hang out with kids and I got to get kids to bed. But at 5 a.m., no one's telling me what to do. And so if I'm going to think like a designer, that's the time that helps me elevate my thinking.
That's fantastic. To think at a higher level and to be a designer at your life, you're going to purposely create that rhythm in which you can take advantage of that schedule.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, listen, we're about ready to wrap this thing up today. Lots of great content for this episode. What should someone leave with today?
My hope is that this episode is a bat that beats the apathy out of you.
Nice.
And all the excuses that someone has made as to why they can't do that, why they can't head that way, is to understand you have not just control, you have responsibility over your life and the lives of those you lead. And so do it purposefully. Do it intentionally. Think like an architect.
I love it. Take the bat and beat the apathy out of it. I mean, that's fantastic. Sometimes it's just that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to wrap it up right there and leave it with that right there is so good. We're happy that you join us every week. It's been exciting for you guys to continue to share and rate and review this on all the podcasting and subscribing to those. We're so glad that you guys do that. Don't forget to meet us back here next week, Wednesday, for episode 11, The 3 Rhythms. We can't wait for you guys to be part of that. We'll see you next week. Take care.